So this is a historic day. Never before have so many online journalists, influencers come together in this building to discuss the future of social media. Each of you is fulfilling a vital role in our nation. You're challenging the media gatekeepers and the corporate censors to bring the facts straight to the American people. Together you reach more people than any television broadcast network by far. Free speech is a bedrock of American life. Our constitutional rights must be fiercely protected. And today I'm directing my administration to explore all regulatory and legislative solutions to protect free speech and the free speech rights of all Americans. We hope to see transparency, more accountability, and more freedom.
Strength and honor.
Strength and honor.
Strength and honor. At my signal, unleash hell.
What up, y'all? It's Devin with Up TV, aka The Dot Connector. And before I go deep in on today's topic, let me be clear. I don't consider myself to be left or right, Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative. I believe both parties are corrupt in their own ways, and over the years, both parties have tremendously failed the American people. I look at both parties as two wings of the same bird, but I can't deny it. I'm pretty impressed by some of the moves that Donald Trump is making, but most of all, I'm pretty impressed by Senator Ted Cruz and how he's literally making these Google executives sweat. As many of you already know, online censorship is becoming a huge problem in America. This is partly because of clear evidence that Google, Facebook, Twitter, and pretty much all tech companies in Silicon Valley are overwhelmingly on the left. This wouldn't be a problem if these companies were fair and unbiased, but they are not. It's becoming clear that Democrats don't like truth. They don't like Christians. They don't like independent media. They don't like conspiracy theories, and they don't like anyone who disagrees with their ideology. And I know some people are going to be pretty upset that I said I'm impressed by Trump in light of some of his recent tweets, but you know what? I don't care, because people tell me every day to go back to Africa. Is it offensive? Yes. But do I cry over it? No. I don't delete those comments. I don't censor anybody who has anything negative to say about me, because I believe in your right to say whatever you please. I believe in your freedom of speech. Do some things go a little too far? Yes, but if you start trying to censor everything, then what you will end up creating is a 1984 George Orwellian nightmare, which is exactly what I'm starting to believe that these Democrats want to do. They want to rule America like a communist dictatorship, and it's becoming evident that they don't really care about people like you and me. That is why I have committed myself into making a documentary that is going to expose everything, and I mean everything, because the information is out there. Somebody just got to connect the dots, and it might as well be me, because I can't stomach what is currently taking place in this nation. It's sickening. Google may indeed be the most powerful company in the world because they have a monopoly over information. They get to choose what people see and what people don't see, and trust me when I say all we have to do is resist, and Google will be forced to change. Google tried to create a search engine in China called Dragonfly that would directly tell their government what people were searching. Because of the backlash, though, because people resisted, Google was forced to stop making Dragonfly. It's not too late for YouTube and Google to change their algorithms back to being fair and unbiased. But now that Google, who thanks their God, has thrown many of us into cyber hell, it's time we climb ourselves out of hell back into the light and demand justice, demand truth, demand freedom from these tech companies. Is Donald Trump playing both sides? I don't know. Only time will tell. I plan on discussing that in my documentary, so stay tuned. But so far, it seems that Republicans, Christians, conspiracy theories, and just everyday content creators are starting to realize just how bad the situation really is. And together, we have a chance to band together and stop the censorship, or do nothing and watch things get progressively worse. Now, I made today's video because I want to shed some light on what's currently been going on, so stay tuned, because I'm about to share with y'all some of my favorite clips of what's been happening lately. So please give me your thoughts on this whole situation. I do read your comments, and I appreciate everyone's opinion, even if it's in opposition to my own. This is Devin with Up TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also hit that bell so you get notified anytime I upload a new video. Support the channel by donating, becoming a member, purchasing merch, and subscribing to Up TV too. Hopefully the storm will end soon and I won't need you guys' help so much, but I have been shadow banned, as many of you already know, so I definitely need your help. And I'd like to give a special thanks to anyone who has already done these things, such as donating or whatever. As always, I love you, family. Give your life to Yeshua, and I'll holla at y'all later. Peace.
A Google whistleblower has come forward to describe his company's plans to remake the American political landscape. Google, of course, is the most powerful company in the world. So when an anonymous whistleblower comes forward, in this case telling Project Veritas that Google is using internal algorithms to shape what Americans see online, and by extension what they think, you better take it seriously.
Fairness is a dog whistle. It does not mean what you think that it means, and you have to apply doublethink in order to understand what they're really saying. And what they're really saying about fairness is that they have to manipulate their search results so that it gives them their political agenda that they want. And so they have to rebias their algorithms so that they can get their agenda across.
That's the definition of propaganda, again, being perpetuated by the single most powerful company in the history of the world. This is not surprising to viewers of this show. James Dorn was fired for Google for his political views, his totally conventional, moderate political views, and then came on this show to describe the culture at Google. Watch this.
There are definitely some political biases within Google that I was trying to shed light on in the document, and that they affect many parts of the business, and, for example, who they do business with and what type of content they create. And I really think that those political biases need to be addressed.
A lot of Americans have concerns that big tech media companies, and Google in particular, are engaged in political censorship and bias. As you know, Google enjoys a special immunity from liability under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. The predicate for that immunity was that Google and other big tech media companies would be neutral public fora. Does Google consider itself a neutral public forum?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, it does.
Okay. Are you familiar with a report that was released yesterday from Veritas that included a whistleblower from within Google, that included videos from a senior executive at Google, and that included documents that are purportedly internal PowerPoint documents from Google?
Yes, I heard about that report in industry news.
Have you seen the report?
No, I have not.
So you didn't review the report to prepare for this hearing?
It's been a busy day, and I have a day job, which is digital well-being at Google. So I'm trying to make sure I keep the trains on the
sorry,
tracks.
this hearing is impinging on your day job.
It's a great opportunity. Thank you.
It's not just whistleblowers that will. Excuse me. Hidden camera footage obtained by Project Veritas shows a conversation with a woman called Jen Janai. Her Google title is Head of Responsible Innovations in the Global Affairs Department. In that video, Janai says that Google is working specifically on products to make certain that Donald Trump does not win another election. Quote, "We're also training our algorithms, like if 2016 happened again, would the outcome be different?" People were not putting that line in the sand, that they were not saying that what's fair and what's equitable. So we're like, well, we're a big company, we're going to say it. In other words, we're going to try and affect the outcome of the 2020 presidential campaign. Janai goes on to blast Elizabeth Warren's proposal to break Google up into two companies. Why? Check out this reasoning. Quote, "All these smaller companies who don't have the same resources that we do will be charged with preventing the next Trump situation. It's like a small company cannot do that." Huh.
Well, one of the things in that report, and I would recommend people interested in political bias at Google watch the entire report and judge for yourself. There's a video from a woman, Jen Janai. It's a secret video that was recorded. Jen Janai, as I understand it, is the head of, quote, responsible innovation for Google. Are you familiar with Ms. Janai?
I work in user experience, and I believe that AI group is somebody we worked with on the AI principles, but it's a big company, and I don't work directly with Jen.
Do you know her or no?
I do not know Jen.
Okay. As I understand it, she is shown in the video saying, and this is a quote, Elizabeth Warren is saying that we should break up Google. And like, I love her, but she's very misguided. Like, that will not make it better. It will make it worse. Because all these smaller companies who don't have the same resources that we do will be charged with preventing the next Trump situation. It's like a small company cannot do that. Do you think it's Google's job to, quote, prevent the next Trump situation?
Thank you, Senator. I don't agree with that. No, sir.
So a different individual, a whistleblower identified simply as an insider at Google with knowledge of the algorithm, is quoted on the same report as saying, Google, quote, is bent on never letting somebody like Donald Trump come to power again. Do you think it's Google's job to make sure, quote, somebody like Donald Trump never comes to power again?
No, sir, I don't think that is Google's job. And we build for everyone, including every single religious belief, every single demographic, every single region, and certainly every political affiliation.
Well, I have to say that that certainly does not appear to be the case. Of the senior executives at Google, do you know of a single one who voted for Donald Trump?
Thank you, Senator. I'm a user experience director and I work on Google Digital Wellbeing, and I can tell you we have diverse views,
it's
but
a
I
simple
can't.
question. Do you know of anyone who voted for Trump? Of the senior
I definitely
executives?
know of people who voted for Trump.
Of the senior executives at Google?
I don't talk politics with my workmate.
Is that a no?
Sorry, is that a no to what?
Do you know of any senior executives, even a single senior executive at the company who voted for Donald Trump?
As the digital well-being expert, I don't think this is in my purview to comment on
So you don't know that.
affiliations.
That's all right. You don't have to know.
I definitely don't know.
I can tell you what the public records show. The public records show that in 2016, Google employees gave to the Hillary Clinton campaign $1.315 million. That's a lot of money. Care to venture how much they gave to the Trump campaign?
I would have no idea, sir.
Well, the nice thing is it's a round number, $0.00. Not a penny, according to the public reports. Let's talk about one of the PowerPoints that was leaked. The Veritas report has Google internally saying, I propose we make machine learning intentionally human-centered and intervene for fairness. Is this document accurate?
Thank you, sir. I don't know about this document, so I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to respond to the committee in writing afterwards as to whether this PowerPoint and the other documents that are included in the Veritas report, whether those documents are accurate. And I recognize that your lawyers may want to write explanation. You're welcome to write all the explanation that you want, but I also want a simple, clear answer. Is this an accurate document that was generated by Google? Do you agree with the sentiment expressed in this document?
No, sir, I do not.
So, using a company's dominance on the internet to sway the outcome of an election, that's their plan. There should be a term for what Janai is describing. Turns out there is a term. It's a term you've heard constantly from talking heads on television for more than 2 years. It's called hacking an election. Google wants to hack our election. They're saying that out loud. As we've been told over and over again by CNN and the Washington Post and the New York Times and all the other propagandists, hacking an election is very bad. At minimum, it warrants a multi-year investigation by law enforcement agencies. And yet, it's happening now. The Washington establishment has said they want to prevent election interference, but of course that's a lie. They just want to make sure they control the elections. That's their only goal. That's why they're not attacking the real source of election interference, which is Silicon Valley. Google, Facebook, and their ilk, they have far more political power than Russia ever has or ever will have. No serious person doubts that. But the people in charge of our country don't care about any of that, because when Google meddles in an election, Democrats benefit. By the way, if you want to find that video, you can't access it on YouTube. Google took it down. That's not surprising. You can already be tossed off of YouTube and Facebook if you decide they're using speech you don't like. They'll accuse you of hate speech, whatever that means.
Let me read you another, also in this report. It indicates that Google, according to this whistleblower, deliberately makes recommendations if someone is searching for conservative commentators, deliberately shifts the recommendation, so instead of recommending other conservative commentators, it recommends organizations like CNN or MSNBC or left-leaning political outlets. Is that occurring?
Thank you, sir. I can't comment on search algorithms or recommendations given my purview as the digital well-being lead. I can take that back to my team, though.
So is it part of digital well-being for search recommendations to reflect where the user wants to go rather than deliberately shifting where they want to go?
Thank you, sir. As a user experience professional, we focus on delivering on user goals. So we try to get out of the way and get them on the task at hand.
So a final question. One of these documents that was leaked explains what Google is doing, and it has a series of steps. Training data are collected and classified, algorithms are programmed, media are filtered, ranked, aggregated, and guaranteed, and that ends with people, parentheses, like us, are programmed. Does Google view its job as programming people with search results?
Thank you, Senator. I can't speak for the whole entire company, but I can tell you that we make sure that we put our users first in our design.
Well, I think these questions raise very serious, these documents raise very serious questions about political bias at the company.
For some of the thoughtful discussion on how you combat terrorism online. I think there's worthy debates to be had there. There's good questions on whether some of this content provides education so that we know of the bad things out there, or whether it's radicalizing people. Those are hard discussions to have, and I don't know that we're going to solve them today. But the problem is that the testimony doesn't stop there. The policies at your social media companies do not stop there. It doesn't stop at the clear-cut lines of terrorism and terrorist videos and terrorist propaganda. Unfortunately, that's not exactly what we're talking about. It goes much further than that. It goes down the slippery slope of what speech is appropriate for your platform and the vague standards that you employ in order to decide what is appropriate. And this is especially concerning given the recent news and the recent leaked emails from Google. They show that labeling mainstream conservative media as Nazis is a premise upon which you operate. It's not even a question, according to those emails. The emails say, given that Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, and Dennis Prager are Nazis, given that that's a premise, what do we do about it? 2 of 3 of these people are Jewish, very religious Jews, and yet you think they're Nazis. It begs the question, what kind of education do people at Google have? So they think that religious Jews are Nazis? 3 of 3 of these people had family members killed in the Holocaust. Ben Shapiro is the #1 target of the alt-right, and yet you people operate off the premise that he's a Nazi. It's pretty disturbing. And it gets to the question, do you believe in hate speech? How do you define that? Can you give me a quick definition right now? Is it written down somewhere, Google? Can you give me a definition of hate speech?
Congressman, yes. So hate speech, again, as updated in our guidelines now, extends to superiority over protected groups to justify discrimination, violence, and so on, based on a number of defining characteristics, whether that's race, sexual orientation, veteran status.
Do you have an example of Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson or Dennis Prager engaging in hate speech? Do you have one example off the top of your head?
So, Congressman, we evaluate individual piece of content based on that content, rather than based on the speaker.
Okay. Let's get to the next question. Do you believe speech can be violence? All right, there's not can you incite violence? That is very clearly not protected. But can speech just be violence? Do you believe that speech that isn't specifically calling for violence can be labeled violence and therefore harmful to people? Is that possible?
Congressman, I'm not sure I fully understand the distinction you're drawing. Certainly, again, incitement to violence or things that are encouraging dangerous behavior, those are things that would be against our policies.
Here's the thing. When you call somebody a Nazi, you can make the argument that you're inciting violence, and here's how. As a country, we all agree that Nazis are bad. We actually invaded an entire continent to defeat the Nazis. It's normal to say #punch a Nazi because there's this common thread in this country that they're bad and that they're evil and that they should be destroyed. When you're operating off of that premise, and frankly, it's a good premise to operate on, well, what you're implying then is that it's okay to use violence against them. When you label them, when one of the most powerful social media companies in the world labels people as Nazis, you can make the argument that's inciting violence. What you're doing is wholly irresponsible. It doesn't stop there. A year ago, it was also made clear that your fact-check system is blatantly targeted at conservative newspapers. Do you have any comments on that? Are you aware of the story I'm talking about?
I'm not familiar with necessarily the specific story, Congressman. I am aware that from all political viewpoints, we sometimes get questions of this sort. I can say that our fact-check labels generally are done algorithmically based on markup and follow our policies.
For the record, they specifically target conservative news media, and oftentimes they have a fact check on there that doesn't even reference the actual article, but Google makes sure that it's right next to it so as to make people understand that that one is questionable, even though when you actually read through it, it has nothing to do with it. A few days ago, and this goes to you, Ms. Burkett, one of my constituents posted photos on Facebook of Republican women daring to say that there are women for Trump. Facebook took down that post right away with no explanation. Is there any explanation for that?
Without seeing it, it's hard for me to opine. That doesn't violate our policies, but I'm happy to follow up on the specific example with you.
Thank you. Listen, here's what it comes down to. If we don't share the values of free speech, I'm not sure where we go from here. This practice of silencing millions and millions of people, it will create wounds and divisions in this country that we cannot heal from. This is extremely worrisome. You've created amazing platforms. We can do amazing things with what these companies have created. But if we continue down this path, it'll tear us apart. You do not have a constitutional obligation to enforce the First Amendment, but I would say that you absolutely have an obligation to enforce American values, and the First Amendment is an underpinning of American values that we should be protecting until the day we die. Thank you, and thank you for indulging me, Mr. Chairman.
I was invited to the White House Social Media Summit. It was incredible. The president talked about fighting back against all the social media censorship and the bias. There were a couple of members of Congress at the meeting as well. I know that they streamed some of it on the White House YouTube channel, but then they edited out some of the questions from the audience. So I was able to point out to the president, to ask him rather to focus a little bit more on YouTube, because obviously he's always talking about YouTube, Facebook, Google, or not YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Google. I don't think I've heard the word YouTube come out of the president's mouth. So I politely suggested that he focus more on YouTube and pointed out some. I'm here with my new friends here too.
This YouTube channel right now.
David Harris Jr.
What's happening, Mark?
We're multi-streaming here.
Yeah, we are.
At the Capitol, breaking down the White House Social Media Summit.
Was it amazing?
It was absolutely incredible, and it was much needed, and it was not just for show, but it was a symbolic gesture fighting back against the censorship of the social media companies. But
it's necessary because you deal with it. You deal with it for a long time, haven't you, Mark?
YouTube, and this is what I asked the president, is to focus more on YouTube, because I don't think he knows the power of YouTube, and a lot of people still think it's for entertainment and for cat videos and funny prank videos. And in the discussions about censorship, it's always Twitter, Facebook, Google. Twitter, Facebook, Google. Yeah. So, I very politely recommended to focus more on YouTube, and I won't reveal all that went down, but let's just say that it's the beginning of the pushback against.
She said I still like cat videos.
Okay, but that's YouTube's for everything, though. But I mean, am I not right in that YouTube is overlooked in this whole conversation about censorship? And
no better person there to represent YouTube than the king, Mark Dice.
I represented you guys well. I was on my best behavior.
Yep.
But I did see Jim Acosta in the White House Rose Garden, and he was asking to get teased. The New York Post said I was yelling at him, and Vox said that I was harassing him.
Total lies.
You'll see the video on Monday.
Antagonistic.
It was teasing.
It
was friendly teasing amongst colleagues.
But it wasn't bullying. It wasn't bullying.
I wasn't yelling.
No.
Sebastian Gordon being a little rowdy, but he was basically threatened from a Playboy reporter.
He was threatened.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, let's go outside.
The best part after the summit was the president gave a speech, gave a statement about the census, and in the Rose Garden where all the white chairs are, where everybody sits, all the press sits and asks questions, they kicked everybody out, all the media, the fake media, out of the seats and
seats.
made them go and stand behind us.
Because why?
Because we are the real media. We are the real media.
We were in their seats.
We were in the White House Rose Garden press seats with all the clowns standing around, and then the president didn't take any questions from them. So some Playboy reporter got all mouthy and said, "Oh, you're not going to take any questions." Yeah. And so things got a little bit heated there. He challenged Sebastian Gorka to a fight.
Literally. Let's take it outside.
Yeah, and then I started thinking, I was like, oh man, maybe I misbehaved and I'm not going to get invited back or anything. No. But then the president tweeted out this morning, Sebastian Gorka for the win.
For the win.
For the win. So the president's got our back.
I love how President Trump trolls folks. He's just such a real person. He keeps it real. He's not afraid to. I appreciate that. A lot of people say he tweets too much. I say, you know what? I don't think he tweets too much. I appreciate him tweeting because he's bypassing the mainstream media, which is constantly feeding us nothing but their narrative. Just like that run-in that Sebastian Gorka had. CNN was
pushing back.
CNN was quick to go hop on it and say, Sebastian Gorka started
the
whole
video.
thing.
You see the video that they posted. If you're just joining the stream, by the way, this is my new friend David Harris Jr. And he is also multi-streaming. And what's up over there to David's fans on his channel?
And it's Mark Dice. If you guys, I'm sure you know who Mark is. He's the king.
Let's talk about the Senate hearing about free speech today. You're holding this. I know you've invited Dennis Prager to come to Capitol Hill to talk about this because it really affects him personally.
Yeah.
Listen to what he said earlier on our show.
If there's anything you would think that liberals and conservatives would agree on, and admittedly there isn't much, you would think it's about protecting free speech. And now today we have at PragerU, we have 1 billion views a year. We're very effective. And of our 320 5-minute videos, about 60 are on the restricted list. That means if you block pornography, you cannot see a discussion of Lincoln's address at Gettysburg. It's an absurdity if they say the algorithm. They created the algorithm. Let them give the algorithm to the public. This is how we ban videos.
He said you can't even watch one of his videos about history if you have blocked pornography. If you're a parent and you've blocked pornography. And when we asked him why, and he said they hate us. They just don't want anyone to see our videos.
In George Orwell's famous book, 1984, the way Big Brother controlled its power, the way the state controlled its power is it controlled information. So we're at war with Eurasia. We've always been at war with Eurasia. And if that changes, the information simply disappears. We see in the big tech media companies that same exact power. A couple of months ago, I chaired a hearing with Facebook and Twitter and the censorship that they're engaged in online, the political bias. Today, I'm chairing a hearing with Google. Google is a monopoly. Google may well be the most powerful company on the face of the planet because they have a monopoly on information, on what you know and what I know. And not only that, but Google owns YouTube, which is the second most popular website on the face of the planet. And the problem is they use these monopoly powers to silence voices they don't like. Listen, Dennis Prager is a brilliant thinker, but nobody with any sense would describe Dennis Prager as some sort of dangerous voice that must be muzzled. But if you're a leftist, he's a very dangerous voice because he responds with facts and reason, and the left is terrified of facts and reason.
So do you know what you're going to do with these tech companies? Do you know where does Ted Cruz stand? Because you're a free enterprise guy.
Sure.
Google wants to be the best, and they do have a huge stake in our economy. Where do you stand?
It is a great question, and I will readily concede the solution is complicated. Nobody wants to see a federal speech police deciding what is and isn't permissible. What we do, however, have is 3 possible remedies. Number 1, there's a special provision of law, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, that gives Google and Facebook and Twitter and the big tech media companies a special immunity from liability that nobody else enjoys. And Congress passed that under the assumption they would be neutral public fora. In other words, they weren't going to be biased. They weren't going to favor one view over another. They would let all comers come to their site. They've decided not to do that. They've decided to be hardcore leftists, to silence, to throttle, to shadow ban conservatives. And I think if they continue to do that, there's no reason they should get a special immunity from liability that nobody else does. Number 2 is the antitrust laws. Listen, by any measure, Google is larger, it is more powerful, it has a larger market cap. than AT&T was when it was broken up by the antitrust laws. It's larger and more powerful than Standard Oil was when it was broken up by the antitrust laws. Google is a monopoly, and Google is abusing its monopoly powers. We have antitrust laws to deal with that. And third, the Department of Justice can and should be investigating along the lines of fraud and or breach of contract, which is, look, when you sign up, say, with a Facebook or Twitter, you assume that if you follow someone, you'll see their tweets, you'll see their posts. Likewise, you assume if someone follows you, they'll see what you tweet and what you post. That's not, in fact, what's happening. What's happening is the social media sites are censoring, they're shadow banning. If they don't like what you're saying, they just hide what you're saying. That is essentially a fraud on the consumer, and they're deceiving the consumer because they've got a political agenda. Any of those three remedies needs to be considered, and I think the scope of this problem needs to be fully understood.
The big tech companies know those are things that could happen to them, so it'll be interesting to see what they tell your subcommittee. Sir, thank you very much. Good luck today.
Thanks, Senator.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. Mr. Braccio, you talked about that Google values being a trusted brand. I will tell you, I think that trust has been severely eroded. Google, as I understand it, was founded on a motto of "Don't be evil." There are more than a few Americans who have skepticism that Google is living up to that promise. You answered Senator Hawley that, well, gosh, The Economist and others have done studies. Did The Economist have access to Google's internal records?
No, Senator, I believe it was done externally. They ran a series of tests based on results that they were plugging into our search engine.
So one of the very frustrating things about this topic is there are very limited data. Much of this topic gets argued by anecdote, which is a less than satisfying way to consider any topic or to consider any analysis, and it yields things such as Democratic senators saying there is no censorship. The problem is Google has all the data, as does Facebook, as does Twitter. Let's see if we can get a little bit of that data. In the year 2018, how many ads by Republican office holders did Google block?
How many political ads?
How many ads by a Republican office holder did Google block?
I don't have the number off the top of my head. I would say the vast majority of ads that get submitted get run.
Will you commit to answering that question?
We'd be happy to come back to you.
And I want the same answer. How many ads by Democrats did Google block? How many videos by Republican office holders did YouTube block? How many videos by Democratic office holders did YouTube block? Those are objective data.
On the latter question, we looked into that. There were no videos blocked by Republicans or Democrat members of the Congress.
Okay, so my understanding actually is one of the members of this committee, Senator Marsha Blackburn, had one of her ads blocked because you deemed it shocking content. Is that...
Ads, again, distinguish ads from videos. I thought you divided those two. Ads, we have had both Democrats and Republicans on occasion be blocked. In the case of Senator Blackburn, yes, there was an ad that she submitted. It involved one of the people on the ad voicing an obscenity that...
Although that was bleeped out, is that correct?
That violates our policy as well. It was clear what it was, apparently, and that was violated. So we went back, we talked to the senator's office
let me say,
and fixed
I
that.
appreciate your commitment to answer these questions, and I'm going to ask them to you in writing.
Mm-hmm.
If Google will answer some straightforward questions that provide the data, that may go a long way either to exonerating Google or to demonstrating there's a real problem, and not only on the metric of Republicans versus Democrats, also on the metric of how many pro-life ads has Google refused to run. This committee has heard testimony, for example, that the movie Unplanned, the true story about a former employee of Planned Parenthood, Google refused to run their ads. So that's a question I'd like an answer to. How many pro-life ads did Google refuse to run, and how many pro-choice ads did Google refuse to run? Likewise, how many pro-Israel ads has Google refused to run? How many anti-Israel ads? Those data, right now, Google is a black box, and nobody knows. Let me ask another question. What was the average ad rate Google charged the Trump campaign in the 2016 campaign?
Ad rates, Senator, are set by auction. So Democrats, Republicans, it's entirely based on when they would want to run.
There is an average ad rate. That is a number. It would be the average of the rate you charged across the board. And I'm going to ask you in writing, what was the average ad rate that the Trump campaign paid and the Clinton campaign paid? And if those two numbers are roughly equal, that will indicate one thing. If those two numbers are wildly different, that may indicate something else. And right now, it is Google that knows that, and as far as I know, nobody else.
If I may, again, just on ads specifically, all ads are not the same. In other words, if you are running a banner headline on YouTube, that may be a higher price than a lower, less. So it's a matter of going to be like for like.
That would be fabulous, and you're more than welcome to break it down. The average banner ad rate for the Trump campaign was X, and the average, if there are three different types of ads, break it down in whatever category, but compare apples to apples.
And if I could also, Senator, we do have all of the advertising spending for all members on our website where we publicize this. There's a transparency report that we put out annually on spending by candidates. It's all up there. Welcome to. We'll be happy to point it out to your staff.
Now, let me ask you, some have asked, well, gosh, who would possibly think that Google was discriminating against conservative views? The senior leadership at Google, does it lean left or does it lean right?
Senator, senior leadership, that the whole team consists of people from a variety of different perspectives, from outside of the United States, from American.
Mr. Baccia, you're doing something rather remarkable, which is you're managing to be less candid than Mark Zuckerberg. Mr. Zuckerberg, when he testified before this committee, admitted Silicon Valley is overwhelmingly liberal, and anyone operating in the realm of simple reality would acknowledge that. Would you agree with that?
Senator, I go back to 100,000 people, 70, 80 different countries, leadership teams pulled from all over the world. I don't think it's a matter of easy caricature. The days when we were just a Silicon Valley company.
Let's focus on some simple data. It's where data is helpful. I did an FEC analysis in 2016 of senior executives at Google, people who had the title of some form of executive, vice president, or director. Found at least 88 unique senior officials at Google who made contributions to the Hillary Clinton campaign. 88. Do you know how many senior executives at Google made contributions to the Trump campaign?
Senator, it's not my business to look into that.
Care to field a guess? Zero. Goose egg. Not a single one. This ain't close that you can't say, gosh, I don't know anything about the politics here. That is disconnected from reality. Let's look at another example. Senator Blackburn asked about the advisory council that you put together on artificial intelligence. One of the people on that advisory council was Kay Coles James. He was the head of the Heritage Foundation.
Yes, sir.
You worked at the Heritage Foundation.
I did.
I believe you said. Do you consider the Heritage Foundation some fringe organization?
No, Senator, I consider it a conservative organization.
So 2,500 Google employees signed a petition to have Ms. James removed from the council. And they said, quote, by appointing James to the ATEAC, Google elevates and endorses her views, implying that hers is a valid perspective worthy of inclusion in its decision-making. This is unacceptable. So you have 2,500 employees at Google saying that Ms. James, who, by the way, is an African-American woman, was one of the first women to desegregate the Richmond public schools. 2,500 Google employees saying that her view is not valid or worthy of inclusion. Google, in response to this, dissolved the entire committee. Do you understand when you see that kind of bias saying a conservative African-American woman's views are not valid and not worthy of inclusion, that the American people would say, these guys are silencing voices they disagree with?
Senator, the 2,300 amounts to something around 2% of the Google employees.
But Google acted on their recommendation.
No,
you
Senator.
Dissolved the committee.
We did not, Senator. What happened in that situation was it was a committee that consisted of a number of time progressed, a number of members of the committee, other than Ms. James, decided to fall off the committee, to withdraw from the committee.
So is it your testimony, Mr. Bate, because I'm finding this difficult to credit? Is it your testimony that Google did not dissolve the committee because your employees were mad that anyone right of center was included?
We dissolved the committee, Senator. I think we were clear at the end of the day that it was not going to be viable to continue the council, given what we were seeing happening with other members of the committee.
In a March 18 email to at least 17 other Google employees, Google employee Liam Hopkins stated that, quote, PragerU, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro et al. Are all Nazis, this is a quote, are using dog whistles. He further suggested that Google isolate this, quote, far-right content. Is it your judgment that Mr. Prager, Mr. Peterson, and Mr. Shapiro are Nazis?
No, Senator.
At least two of the three, Mr. Prager and Mr. Shapiro, are Orthodox Jews. Are you familiar with any Orthodox Jews who are Nazis?
No, Senator.
Is that not a horrifically offensive, nutty statement?
Senator, we have 100,000 people in the company, and there are 5-7 times the number of people working in Congress. We have people who will say things on chat rooms and other
17
things
Google
that
employees on that email. Did even one of them object to this characterization?
I don't know whether they did or not, Senator. We have a lot of these chat rooms that go on. People say things in chat rooms that certainly don't reflect the views of the company. It's not unlike many other workplaces around the world where people may say things that don't reflect the views of the leadership team and management, where it is what it is.
Do you understand why people would be skeptical of Google's judgment and the radical politics of Google's employees when you believe Orthodox Jews like Mr. Prager and Mr. Shapiro are secretly Nazis?
Again, Senator, this is a statement that was made by an individual employee on some chat room board.
Google executive Jen Janai was videoed saying that Google is, quote, training its algorithms with an eye to prevent something like 2016 from happening again. Is that what Google is working to do? And here's the quote. We're also training our algorithms like if 2016 happened again, would the outcome be different?
So, Senator, this was taken, I believe, from the Project Veritas videos where Ms. Janai was, who is a Google employee without responsibility for our search algorithms, was secretly videotaped without her consent. Her reference that you're quoting here and that the video subsequently made was to activities that we have undertaken to make sure that election interference that was seen, foreign state interference in the elections that was seen in 2016 does not happen again. That's what the reference is to.
Well, I think one of the best things to come out of this hearing is your commitment to answer the clear and direct questions from this committee with real numbers and specific hard data on Google's practices. That will go a long way to providing transparency that has far too long been missing. And let me echo both Senator Blumenthal and Senator Hawley that I would strongly advise Google submit to an independent third-party audit that has no bias, that has no axe to grind, with access to Google's records. An audit that doesn't have access to the record is meaningless. Your competitors are doing so, and I believe the American people expect transparency from all of big tech. So, thank you to each of the witnesses. Mr. Parker, I want to thank you again for sharing your story and your daughter's story. And I will say I very much agree with you that you ought to be able to sue the heck out of Google and YouTube.
Yep.
And if anybody else other than big tech did what they have done to you, if any other citizen delivered a VHS tape of the murder of your daughter to you and your neighbors, you would have a common law tort for intentional infliction of emotional distress, and you could recover very significant damages. There is one group in the United States that is allowed to do what it's doing to you, and that is big tech, because Congress has given them a special subsidy and immunity from liability so they don't bear the consequences of their actions. And I think this hearing has underscored the need for Congress to revisit that.
And I hope you will do so, sir.
As do I. Mr. Prager, you described YouTube restricting various videos, I guess a total of, I believe it is 56 videos produced by Prager University on topics like the Ten Commandments. Another topic, as I understand it, that was restricted was one in which noted liberal, Professor Alan Dershowitz, who was a professor of mine in law school, did a video for you, a historical account of Israel's founding, and as I understand it, YouTube restricted that video as well. Does YouTube ever explain why it is restricting these videos?
It explains nothing. This was the first explanation I heard, the incorporation of murder into the Ten Commandments. With regard to Professor...
I think we would want young people
we would.
hearing thou shalt not murder. That seems like a really good...
It was an argument for the alternative universe at that moment for me. I had never accepted the possibility of one, but I agree with you. One would think that that is exactly what young people should hear. God doesn't want you to murder. But so be it. As regards Professor Dershowitz and the video on Israel's founding, we have 320 videos, 15 of them concern Israel, and half of them have at one time or another been restricted. There is clearly a loathing of Israel at Google. I suspect there is a loathing of America as well. Virtually every video that we have put out that depicts America in a favorable way has also been at some time or another on the restricted list. My favorite example for years was Victor Davis Hanson, this remarkable professor of classics. And he made a video. He's one of the most calm-speaking humans I have ever met. He's the opposite of a grenade-throwing speaker. And the subject was the Korean War. The Korean War in 5 minutes. And it is no longer on the restricted. They go in and out, apparently, in some cases. And that was on the restricted list because... so I try to think, why would that be? And I could only come up with the fact that it shows how noble America's cause in Korea was. That 37,000 Americans died to keep half of the Korean peninsula free. How many people even know that? The Korean War is in the rubbish bin of history, so as Lenin used to put it. It's just unknown. So we want people to be proud of America, not proud of its evils. Of course America's had evils because it's composed of people and people do evil, but it's largely been extraordinarily good, and they don't want us to depict that.
And Mr. Prager, could you describe what the effect is when a video is placed on the restricted list? We heard the representative from Google say, oh, it's no big deal, it's just 2%. You should be just fine with it. What is the effect of Google arbitrarily?
Well, as I explained earlier, it can't be seen by vast numbers of parents have filters, totally understandably given how much junk is on the internet. So this is what's so very important. It not only hurts us in that family can't see that video, it hurts us because then it is a statement by Google that Prager University produces videos on the moral level of pornography. I mean, and
there's no appeal, there's no remedy when
no,
Google
there is none.
Arbitrary power.
We have actually spoken to representatives of theirs that after they say algorithm, if we actually get someone on the phone, we have had humans review it at Google and keep it up. Why? That's community standards. Your video violated community standards. Well, how exactly does the founding of Israel by a Harvard law professor violate community standards? It just does.
You know, I have to say it reminds me of the famous adage about the Supreme Court. We are not infallible because we are final, but rather we are We are not final because we are infallible, but rather we are infallible because we are final. And that appears to be the same approach at Google. Dr. Epstein, I found your testimony incredibly powerful and incredibly concerning. And if anyone draws news out of this hearing, I would encourage you to review very carefully Dr. Epstein's testimony. And I'd like to take a moment to make clear several things. First of all, as I understand your background, you're not a Republican and nor are you a conservative. Is that accurate?
That would be an understatement.
And indeed, you're the former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today.
Correct.
So you're a respected academic. You testified before this committee that Google's manipulation of votes gave at least 2.6 million additional votes to Hillary Clinton in the year 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I want to make sure I understand. You personally supported and voted for Hillary Clinton.
I was a very strong public supporter of Hillary Clinton, yes.
So you're not dismayed that people voted for her, but your testimony is that Google is, through bias in search results, manipulating voters in a way they're not aware of.
On a massive scale, and what I'm saying is that I believe in democracy, I believe in the free and fair election, more than I have any kind of allegiance to a candidate or a party.
And looking forward, if I understood your testimony correctly, you said in subsequent elections, Google and Facebook and Twitter and big tech's manipulation could manipulate as many as 15 million votes in a subsequent election?
In 2020, if all these companies are supporting the same candidate, there are 15 million votes on the line that can be shifted without people's knowledge and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace.
Now you described the Go Vote reminder, and you said it wasn't a public service announcement, but rather manipulation. Can you explain how? I'm not sure everyone followed the details of that.
Well, sure. If on Election Day in 2016, if Mark Zuckerberg, for example, had chosen to send out a Go Vote reminder, say just to Democrats, and no one would have known if he had done this, that would have given that day an additional at least 450,000 votes to Democrats. And we know this without doubt because of Facebook's own published data, because they did an experiment that they didn't tell anyone about during the 2010 election. They published it in 2012. It had 60 million Facebook users involved. They sent out a Go Vote reminder, and they got something like 360,000 more people to get off their sofas and go vote who otherwise would have stayed home. The point is, I don't think that Mr. Zuckerberg sent out that reminder in 2016. I think he was overconfident. I think Google was overconfident. All these companies were. I don't think he sent that out. Without monitoring systems in place, we'll never know what these companies are doing. But the point is, in 2018, I'm sure they were more aggressive. We have lots of data to support that. And in 2020, you can bet that all of these companies are going to go all out. And the methods that they're using are invisible. They're subliminal. They're more powerful than most any effects I've ever seen in the behavioral sciences. And I've been in the behavioral sciences for almost 40 years.
You know, our Democratic colleagues on this committee often talk about what they view as the pernicious effect of big money and big corporate dollars. What you are testifying to is that a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires and giant corporations are able to spend millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars collectively, massively influencing the results of elections. And there's no accountability. You said, we don't know. We have no way of knowing if Google or Facebook or Twitter sends its Democrats or Republicans or how they bias it, because it's a black box with no transparency or accountability whatsoever. Am I understanding you correctly?
Senator, with respect, I must correct you.
Please.
If Mark Zuckerberg chooses to send out a Go Vote reminder just to Democrats on Election Day, that doesn't cost him a dime.
Fair enough. Do you happen to know who the Hillary Clinton campaign's
#1 financial supporter was in the year 2016?
I think I do, but please remind me.
The #1 financial supporter of the Hillary Clinton campaign in the 2016 election was the parent company of Google, Alphabet, who was our first witness. They were her #1 financial donor, and your testimony is, through their deceptive search methods, they moved 2.6 million votes in her direction. I would think anybody, whether or not you favor one candidate or another, should be deeply dismayed about a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires having that much power over our elections to silently and deceptively shift vote outcomes.
Again, with respect, I must correct you. The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million, depending on how aggressively they used the techniques that I've been studying now for 6.5 years.
Wow, could you just say that again, please?
The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million votes, depending on how aggressive they were in using the techniques that I've been studying, such as the search engine manipulation effect, the search suggestion effect, the answer bot effect, and a number of others. They control these, and no one can counteract them. These are not competitive. These are tools that they have at their disposal exclusively.
If any headline comes out of this hearing, that should be it.
Thank you for watching Up TV. If you like this video and would love to see more, check out these great videos here. And don't forget to subscribe to Up TV and Up TV 2 for even more great videos.